In this presentation, I want to address the questions that I've gotten so far from students, and I got 50 responses, out of 90 students, or 87 students technically, from the POL 66 courses. So, it's hard to know what the students who didn't respond, how they're doing, but I'll have a lot more information based on how you all do on the first big assignment coming up. But what I wanted to is give you some answers and then kind of categorize the questions and the struggles that some of you are having, and then figure out how we can share this burden. Because I obviously can't be all things to all people, but I can try to help you individually, and then some of you are having similar challenges. I can try to design things that are for to meet your needs. I might start with saying that 33 out of the responses didn't have any questions, and that several of you had said something like this, that you think the website is easy to use, and that you think the process is clear. So, what accounts for the challenges then? So I think there's a few different ways of thinking about this. So one, I think, is, very natural. This is a new format for most of you. First, I've been teaching online for a very long time. And over the time, I've developed this particular format, and I made a couple changes this semester since most of you did not choose to take an online class. We all moved online. So there's a big difference there. So if you're not used to multiple ways of learning online, then you'll be confused. And by new format, I think the worst form of education that's getting a lot of attention right now is the Blackboard approach. Blackboard was down for like 4 days, so for students who have children or who work, and mostly from lower economic situations, that's devastating. And Blackboard, because it's such a large corporation, tends to have outages like that regularly. You also get, some students get blocked for tech reasons, for financial aid reasons, all sorts of problems. And all of those things are beyond the educator's control. So for those of us who have been doing this for a long time, we've moved off of Blackboard. I use announcements simply to help those students who have to use Blackboard for whatever reason. And I mean that by their choice to use it. You could, of course, like I've said a few times, just copy and paste my website, which almost never goes down. And I might also add, I can give you other formats if that works for you. But again, it's like if you go to the same gas station over and over again, and then you go to a different country or a different state, and you go to that gas station, you get confused because it's a new format. And so I just want to, let you know it's okay if you're confused, and then we'll figure out how to get you not confused. So these questions, I think, are all evidence, right, of just being confused. And so I'm going to address these individually. You don't have an assigned essay in this class. What you have instead is responses to Google Forms. Now, I think some of you, I talked to a bunch of you on the extra credit about your responses. Some of you are clearly typing those up, and that's great, right? Because then all you have to do is copy and paste into the Google form. And I suggested for a couple of students, keep that document because you probably want to use it for your long answer midterm exam, and probably future assignments. So there's nothing wrong with basically typing up an essay about what you're learning in the class. It's a good idea. In fact, it's actually a high cognitive skill that advanced students use. And so there's nothing wrong with it. However, it's not an assignment. And so it's not like a class that gives you a topic and then you do some research and then you write a paper on it. This is not that class. However, some of you are in my POL 67 course class, and that's a legal research class, and that is the assignment, although it's going to be a different form than a boring essay. Those of you who are having difficulties figuring out where the assignment is, one thing I'm trying to try out with you to see if this helps is just by putting whatever assignments are due soonest. I'll put that up in an announcement at the top of the website because I'm trying to imagine that some of you are using the cell phone, right? And so instead of going into Blackboard app, um, it'd be easier if you just went straight to my website, and then the most important information will be right at the top. So you scroll down, and then that'll keep you going. If you need to, you keep scrolling down, and you can see the whole thing. But I want to try to help those of you who are having that difficulty. And then for those of you who are insistent on using Blackboard, I'm sending announcements with reminders. I think you've seen. And so the announcements feature, would be the easiest thing because it's supposed to go to your email as well. So just in case you don't see it on Blackboard announcements, it would show up in your email. Although I have talked to a couple students about that's not working quite right. So I think at this point, right, in those two first ones, I think we have it's just going to be getting used to this system. But because I don't punish you, I don't think this should cause too much stress. We'll figure this out as time goes on. This question about cell phone taxes, Blackboard, right? I'm going to download the app just to see like how frustrating it is. I already know how hard it is and frustrating it is for professors to use if we're not using a $150 textbook that already has everything in it and just give you multiple choice exams. And I don't know why on earth you would have to pay for tuition or for your professor in that class, but I know you're taking them. It is a pain to use Blackboard as a professor, to be honest with you, and everything takes forever. So I feel your pain. And so I hope that what's easier, and there's two ways to think about this, is you just get that website and put it into your favorites or whatever bookmarks, whatever language you use. And then I don't know. I mean, I'll think about maybe Instagram or something if that might be a possibility. But I'll have to do some research on how best to organize that. Which leads me to the next one. This is a little bit contradictory, I might point out, but I think I do understand what you're saying. Everything seems straightforward, but it was more organized. That's a subjective statement, right? So I would need to know what would help you be more organized. Because I'm organized on this end, but it would be very difficult for me to see it from your point of view. So if you have suggestions, then I can easily kind of fulfill those. But without knowing what they are specifically, I can't figure out how to help you for you to be more organized. The easiest way to go through the class, again, would be go to the website and then just scroll down. So from my point of view, I can't see how anything could be more organized than being on a single website where all you have to do is scroll down in time and just complete assignments one at a time. But it would be a lot easier for me, and I think everyone, if Blackboard didn't exist. The fact that you have to go to both for other classes really complicates kind of everything. And then I think the fact that some of us are teaching asynchronous, where you don't have to meet at a specific time, and then others are teaching synchronous, just makes it even more complicated. So I totally understand what you mean. I wish the structure of the college was more organized, or even just our own department. So we're having conversations about this right now, just so you know, to try to figure out how to make things a little bit simpler. But try to remember, right? Normally I would have one online class, and it's pretty straightforward to deal with 25 students with one single website. With over 100 students taking, and I don't even know, right, the structures of all your classes, it's just too difficult to even figure out how to organize that. And we've had really no guidance on what that process would be. But I do think this next comment is kind of interesting, right? Because they've seemed to organized in 4-week segments. And that's about right. And I did say that in the introductory video, that I give you about 3 to 5 weeks to get the work done. And that's especially for mothers who have children. Because I don't, it's easier to plan around a month than it is to try to get everything done in 1 day or 2 days. So, everybody's going to have to organize differently, and that puts the burden on me to try to figure out how to help you best. I think, if you thought about it, every 4 weeks there's a new assignment, that does make sense, right? Because there's 12, 13 weeks in a semester, and this is broken up into 3 parts. But, right, this is going to depend on you getting used to the system. For some of you, you're going to be able to get ahead and get some assignments done earlier because you get used to the system. So I think, I that first category, I totally understand. It's a new system. It's going to take you some time. I'm not going to punish you. Don't feel stupid for emailing me or setting up a Zoom. We'll go over it over and over and over it again because everybody's going to have to organize differently based on your schedule and your obligations. So I understand that, and I'm not going to punish you for that. This next set of resistance, they're exactly the same sets I get in person. So I don't think this has anything to do with the structure of the internet website or Blackboard. I think this is just, the difficulty of just learning in college. The first assignment, I think the trouble I think that we have as a community college that four-year institutions don't have is that when you go to a four-year institution, they give you an orientation where you learn the difference between homework, assignments, and what your expectations are as far as reading. So sometimes when I see this question where it says, what is the first assignment? I automatically think, what do you mean the first reading? What do you, but I think what you mean is like the first time I have to do something which the professor is going to see. So I decided to do that in the format of what would be called a quiz, right, if we were in person. And you have resources that you're supposed to review, just like you would in class. And then you're going to get quizzed on those, and you answer those in a Google form. So it's exactly the same format in person. And I get the exact same questions, right, that I'm confused on what it is I'm supposed to do. So that's hard for me to answer, right, because again, what you need to do is you had to do the diagnostic for attendance. After that, you have to pick a group, one of the injustice groups. And then from there, you have to review those resources. And I have to assume you have to try to figure them out, right? Understand them, take notes. And then you're going to be quizzed on those things. So again, that's exactly how it works in the physical classroom. So I have to know a little bit more. And if we were face-to-face, I could figure out which part of that process are you having trouble with, and then I could help you with it. In here, I just have to assume that because everything's different in different classes and this different environment, you just might be a little anxious about, how the first assignment is going to go. And it's only 10 points. And so I think I just want everybody to get used to this process, which is why you had so much time to do this work, so you can kind of get settled in and that you could get yourself organized. And so then that leads me to the second question here is like, I'm having issues in finding legal cases that have to do with poverty in the resources provided for poverty. I got you. I understand. But, it's kind of like if you were in your biology class and you were supposed to understand photoplankton and you said, I'm having a hard time understanding photoplankton in the book. Right, and that's what this class is for. So I need to see how you apply the resources to what you mean by legal cases, because that's going to be different than what I mean. And so you're not going to get punished by not getting everything perfect on assignment 1, which again is only 10 points. So I want to just, this is a hard question because you could look things up outside of the resources that I gave you. That's possible, and there's no reason to stop you from doing that. But if what you're saying is you're having a hard time understanding the resources I gave you and how that applies to law and legal cases, then I can only see that when you submit your first answers, and then I could help you a little bit more. So that's a tough question. Some of you might be having, but I'll know that better when I see your responses, and I can kind of help you through that process. And sometimes, let's be honest, right? Sometimes we feel like we don't understand something, but then when we have the pressure of typing it up and putting our answers in, then we suddenly understand it. So we have to just see how it goes. I think this next one is right. You got it right. So this kind of goes to my last comment. Like sometimes we feel like we don't understand it, but when we type it and we do understand it. And the only change here is that I opened it up a couple days early, just because so many of you are actually ready to go, right? So about 40 of you are ready to answer. So I don't need to hold it out any longer. And I'll give you I gave you more time to do it. So it was originally going to be done on October 1st, but I'll keep it open till October 4th. Again, these are the kind of questions or comments that I get in the classroom. So I don't, how do I respond to this? It's not too many questions to answer if you do the work, right? So I don't know how to say it any other way. And again, it's 10 points. So if you don't want the 10 points, then you don't have to do the work. At the beginning of this class, I said, if this class is going to be too hard for you and it's asking you to do too much work, you should seriously consider taking the class with somebody else, because there are teachers who will have you do a reading and then answer 5 multiple choice questions. And, if that's what you want, out of your college experience, it's not my burden to change everything I do for the 1 out of 100 of you who want that. So I hope this is clear, right? Like, I think you should try. I bet you'll find it's not as hard as you think it is. But if it's just not interesting to you and you don't want to do this work, then just take the class with somebody else if you're able, or postpone, right? Take it in the winter. We treat the winter and the fall as the same at Kingsborough, so you're lucky in that way. But all I'm seeing from that, right, is like, maybe we're not a good match. Maybe I'm not the professor for you. But this is a hard one to even think about, because in the classroom, I would depend on students to kind of, put some social pressure on you. So this one, I think these are the hardest ones to deal with, because these are conceptual challenges and they're based on expectations that, are not my expectations. So, so this first one I think is the easiest one to answer from this, because like you obviously get it, but so what is the expectation? Is the expectation that you want to do the work earlier? Because I can arrange that with you. So email me or set up a Zoom, and we can have that be a thing. Are there any recorded lectures? Yes, like I'm recording this one, but do you mean something else? Is class conducted through self-reading, research, and writing papers? Yes, you need to read the readings yourself. You might want to do extra research, and you could write a paper for extra credit. Do we study and learn about the Constitution? Remember, the class is called Constitutional Law, not the Constitution. But that's a troubling question, because what do you mean by Constitution, right? Do you mean the Bill of Rights? Because that's what students tend to mean. Or do you mean the structure of the Constitution? And if you're interested in that, but I have to be honest with you, most students are not. They're interested in the issues and the cases, and what we call in my field as the constitutive nature of law, not the document itself. But if you're interested in that, I have plenty of things that you could study and work on. And as a constitutional law nerd, I'm also interested in that. But it's not American government, right, where you were supposed to have read parts of the Constitution and memorized them. This is not POL 51. So I kind of mentioned in an earlier presentation that if you had done that, you'd be ready to do this class. If you haven't done that before, and if you're not sure and you haven't learned the Constitution yet, I can help you with that. But that was one of the learning outcomes from both high school entrance exams coming to Kingsborough and from POL 51. So I need to be able to help you kind of catch up on that regard. But again, I don't know specifically what you mean by that question. So again, we'd have to, this is a conceptual or expectation difference. The first assignment, right, is going to be on Google Forms. So I think that's a mixture of, having an expectation of it being maybe similar to in person, right? Because we would have done it in person. You would have written it in class. Or we could have just done this through conversation. I think most of the students who got extra credit for sharing their answers realize that, right? In the quote-unquote real world, the non-digital world, we would have probably just done this through a conversation and be done with it. Because again, it's only 10 points. I'm just trying to see if you're on the same page as me. And and other students. How long does it have to be? I thought that was great about the extra credit solutions is some of them were like a sentence, which I think is great. And then others of you admitted that you wrote, 3-4 pages, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I can't punish you for writing a lot. So it could be as short as a sentence, and it could be as long as 3 pages. Remember, there's 7 questions. My expectation, kind of going back to the other question, is that it would be like a sentence each. So that's like not quite an essay. Again, this is just checking, like, are you able to read and understand and then apply it to what we call case law so that I can move on to the next part? Because this is the issue, this is the place where students mostly struggle in this class, is these kind of our preconceived notions of what you think the law is. And so I have to try to complicate that a bit before we get into the harder part of this class, which is judicial interpretation. So here are my interventions and responses, but I'd say how you can be part of your own solution with me, right? So that it's not all on me, trying to guess what you need. So keep it simple, right? I mean, just try to, like, if you look here to the right, literally just do this, right? Don't think about everything else that you have to do. Just focus on reviewing the resources that I took a lot of time of organizing and preparing for you. And it's pretty, to me, this is as organized as you can get. You click here, you have everything you need. So you review those, take some notes, and then boom, you're ready to go when the Google form is open, which is open now. And then just enter in the information. That's it. And you get 10 points, right? I mean, unless you do it just miserably, you're going to get your 10 points. Everybody who did extra credit today would have already gotten 10 points if we opened up the form today. So they're ready to go. Now, they all want to spend more time thinking about it. That's great. And I wish, we could all do that all the time. But, this is the reality of this new situation we're in. But if you're having trouble, whether understanding the resources, whether you don't understand where to put the information, etc., or if you have some ideas on how we could work together, email me. Do not feel bad for emailing me. I don't mind. I like it. It's nice to have people, wanting help. And we can do Zoom, FaceTime, Google video chat, whatever we need to do, anything but the phone. Whatever we need to do in order to make this a pleasant experience for you so that you learn the material, which is what I care about the most. Try to remember this isn't a normal semester. And if I had my choice, I'd be back in physical class. I'm a young man, so I'm not terribly... I'm not in a vulnerable group. So if we had the option of coming back to the physical campus, I would sign up for that. But in particular, let's talk about what you need, right? If this structure is just too hard for you, or it's too difficult to understand, right, how it's organized, then I can make you a PDF. I mean, I can recreate the same environment that we had when we were meeting in the physical world. I can help you with a study schedule. I've done it before. I don't mind doing it. I think we should be doing it. I can make more videos if you want more videos like this one, or if you want content-specific videos, I can do that. Or if you have any other ideas, again, email me and get to know this website, right? This is where everything is. So I hope that this clarifies at least those initial questions and some of the anxiety that maybe some of you are having right now. And I'm going to repeat it over and over again. I'm not going to punish you. And so what I want is to have you learn the best way you can, and however I can help you. I don't mind making kind of alternative forms of submitting information. But just try to keep in mind, right, that I've done this for 12 years, and the simplest way to get the information is the Google form. I know that, is not, well, I don't know anything. I don't know what you think about that. But it's far easier than Blackboard. It also gives me time to look at your answers, as opposed to just, did you correctly pick C even though you didn't really understand what C meant on a multiple choice test. So, I'm challenging like the laziest form of education of the multiple choice exam as being even worth your time. And I'm not going to lower my expectations of you simply because I would have less work to do. I mean, this is a lot more work for me, but the quality of the work is so much better. And again, all of the conversations I had today, I had something like 20 conversations, were really great. I mean, they were really nice. It reminds me of being with you back in campus, in a classroom. It was nice. And I think that the more I can do that with you, the better you'll learn. So you can think of me as a tutor if that's easier. But anyways, that's kind of my first set of answers for those of you who had questions.